This is the Soccer Media Podcast. I'm John Shrader. It's our regular look at the soccer media business and the business of soccer. We're delighted to have with us this time around STU HOLDEN of Fox Sports. He and John Strong called more than 20 games in the World Cup in 2026, both of them getting lots of attention and lots of good attention and good reviews for their work. STU's contract is up soon, and who knows who gets the next World Cup. The FIFA rights have not yet been handed out. We'll talk about those things, the American style of broadcasting, and much more with STU HOLDEN coming right up. He is a face that's known by 340 million Americans now, and maybe some folks around the world, after not his first, his second, but his third World Cup. And right here in North America, STU HOLDEN is with us, and thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
John, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Good, thanks. How are you doing? You all refreshed and ready to go and whatever's next?
Yeah, what happened last summer? I can't even remember at this point. No, look, it was something. It's hard to contextualize, I think, in the moment, because it had been a moment that was 8 years in the making. We got the World Cup rights at Fox Sports. I've been with Fox now for 11 years. The World Cup in North America was always kind of the creme de la creme. We did World Cups in Russia, Qatar, Australia, Canada. But really a lot of that, even for us as broadcasters, but us as a company, was about North America. We knew this would be the biggest and best to ever happen. And honestly, as it's happening, you're kind of living in this moment that's pretty surreal, because you understand that it's big. The audiences were bigger than we had ever had in the past. The games were incredible. John and I did 21 games by the end of the tournament. We called some of the biggest and best games, including a final that was watched by 51 million, but yet it felt very similar to other tournaments that I had worked in the past, because you're traveling, you're calling games, you're going from stadium to stadium, you're on airplanes, but yet there was still something that just felt different. It's hard to put into words even now. What are we, just over a month or so after that final? I was almost living in this kind of euphoric bubble of like what happened versus, what's reality now. I'm back with my family and my kids, but then thinking back on all these incredible moments that I've had time to reflect on that were just incredible, honestly.
If there's anything that will help you come back to earth, will help you deal and be humble with all the attention you got, and that is spending time with your kids, right?
I thought my partner and best friend, John Strong, put it well when I checked in on him and I said, how you doing, man? And he said, well, I jumped on a running treadmill getting back with our families. And I think that was a good way of putting it, in that, like, our families, they don't care what we did. We're just dad. We're mom and dads. We're parents. And in that sense, you kind of go back into just being a dad again, which is the best job in the world. But that felt very different to being on the big stage and in front of so many different people and these giant audiences that we had during that tournament.
So I mentioned the attention, and you got a lot of it, and from circles probably that maybe you hadn't gotten attention from before. Really a mass media view of what you and John Strong and the Fox people do. In the moment, how did that feel, or how does that feel when people are going, "Wow, I know who that guy is"?
It's interesting, because I think my perspective on it is as an athlete as well still. And so when I consider that I have started this is a second career for me. My first career was as a professional athlete, and it was something I did my entire life. I played soccer as a kid and then somehow parlayed that into a job. And even that in itself was still feeling like I was playing a game. Sure, there was pressure, and you're playing in big stadiums in front of a lot of people, but you're kind of just taking it in stride. You're playing in World Cups and Olympics and Premier Leagues. And I got to live out my dream. And then I started this second career, which was broadcasting, and I've just been taking it step by step. And I quickly realized that this was something that I wanted to do as a profession. And then you get more into it, you start working at it, you want to be good at it. And then all of a sudden you're working your way up the ranks, and you're competing with other former professional athletes. In my case, I'm not really competing against guys like John, who are professional broadcasters and had wanted to do that their entire lives and went to sports broadcasting journalism schools. And I'm a broadcaster in a different way in that I'm a former professional athlete. But then, look, I like to host. I want to continue to expand my role and my presence and my profile within sports media. And I consider myself now a full-time sports broadcaster. I am a professional TV guy, and that's been kind of weird to go into that and now see it this way. But to your point, then when you're in the middle of these big tournaments, I knew this would be the biggest audience and biggest stage and biggest opportunity I think that I would have had as a broadcaster to raise my profile. But how do I do that? In my head, I'm not thinking about it any other way than, look, I just want to do a good job. I want to put on the best possible broadcast. I want to be the best part of a team with John, with our Fox Sports crew. And then hopefully within that, you shine in a way that highlights the team and highlights yourself, that people can see what makes you good, or that you are good, quite frankly, because I know this is a subjective business, and what my boss is like, not everybody's going to like in the audience. But I always feel that if I'm doing my best job, I'm going to be put in the best possible positions. And then if I get those chances, it's my job now to try to execute. And I think when I look back on it, I'm incredibly proud of the work that I did, the work I did with John, and the work that we did at Fox Sports. And so it was kind of nice to receive some of that praise and get some of the profiles that came with it. But I've always said, and my dad was the one who imparted this wisdom on me, is, never get too high, never get too low. I think, don't read and believe everything everybody says about you in the best way as well as in the worst way, in the criticism that you get, because I think that distracts you from doing a good job if you start to believe that you're better than you are.
You all did get all those laudits. You got lots of praise for the work you did. Do you feel that you guys were that good? Do you feel like the presentation was as grand as some people said it was?
Look, now, you say that. I would say there was probably just as many people, maybe not as many, but look, I know that I'm not naive to not see some of the criticism as well. And I think that that's par for the course. And I think we always have to at least reconcile with, or at least I do. I think about it this way. I don't seek advice from or take advice from people that I wouldn't seek it from. So in like random Twitter, X user, blah, blah, that tells me I'm doing a terrible job and I'm the worst commentator that they've ever heard in their entire lives, I'm sorry to break the news to you. That doesn't affect me. And quite frankly, I appreciate you for watching either way, if that's your opinion or not. I think, look, what I would say about us at Fox Sports and me and John personally is that there's nobody out there, I can guarantee you, that it means more to be in the position that we're in. And I say that to say that we put so much into this day by day, week by week, month by month. And quite frankly, the years that we have put into be in a position that we were in, the amount we care about American soccer, about global soccer, the amount we care about every single word and the prep that we put into a broadcast that goes out on air. And we recognize that not everybody's going to love it, but we feel that we take such immense pride in the work that we are doing. Truly, if I shared with you the text conversations that John and I have had, the hours of calls, the multiple hours sitting there before games, going over notes and sharing ideas and the things that we think are important, and what do we think that viewers and listeners and audiences will care about in those moments, and which stories can we bring to life in a way that people will care about. We care so much about that. And then in terms of Fox Sports, look, I know Fox are polarizing just because it's Fox, and there's a Fox News, there's a Fox Sports aspect, there's a way in which we cover the sport too that not everybody loves. We try to cater to, I think, generally speaking, at a very high level about the sport, but also welcoming the casual sport fan into the tent. Look, the numbers don't lie. More people watch World Cups, more people watch international matches than watch any other soccer league sport team in this country. And so it's our job, I think, to hook that person that comes in and says, look, I want to support the U.S. men's national team. Well, now we're going to make you care about Cape Verde, about all the other beautiful stories that go on in this tournament, and hope that you watch the rest of the tournament. That's our job. We invested more resources in talent, infrastructure, producers, directors, research, communications than we had ever done in the past. And that was for a reason. And I think it showed in our broadcast in the way that we had multiple sets in different countries. And I can only look, John, you understand sports media. And I think sometimes, and I would assume a lot of your listeners and audience understand it at a very high level. But what we did this last summer, I don't know if it'll ever get the recognition it quite frankly deserves. And I'm saying that I think even just trying to be fair in the way that it's looked at, and knowing the amount of work that went into this from our team in front of and behind the camera, the amount of hours that people put into it. So that's where I get defensive as a TV guy of our group in Fox Sports, of people that don't understand what goes into truly a tournament like that, and the hours on the road, and the just purely managing the infrastructure and the logistics of that, of having, look, we're going down to a four-person team, and Jules Breach and Rob Stone, Peter Schmeichel, Chicharito, Clarence Seedorf down in Mexico. Then you're coming back to the studio with Rebecca Lowe, Zlatan, Thierry, Alexi. And then you're going out to these different game crews. And all the while now, game crews are traveling to different cities behind the scenes with producers, with, travel members, wardrobe. I mean, the amount of wardrobe coordinating, it was truly just a monumental effort that I think Fox Sports put on. And I'm incredibly proud of what we did as a team. And so I hope, and I'm glad that people feel that we did a good job.
So I mentioned this is 3 World Cups for you now, Stu. The next World Cups have not been awarded. Do you have any idea what the timeline is and FIFA's decision about who gets to do this next time around?
FIFA will decide when they want to decide. I mean, if there's anything we know about FIFA, we're on their timeline. Look, I know from our company's perspective, the head of our company, Eric Shanks, has made no secret that we are interested in the package once again. There's a lot of other bidders that are going to be out there. I expect that. Look at the numbers. I mean, we shattered records across the board for this World Cup. It was just absolutely incredible. Now, the other ones are going to have different challenges, right? They're going to be now in a European time zone for the Spain, Portugal, Morocco one. Then you're going to have Saudi Arabia in 2034. So those present different challenges from a scheduling perspective, but the appetite is there for soccer in this country. We know that it's been seen, and it will be bigger than it was in Qatar and in Russia. I believe in the momentum that is there, but I hope we keep it at Fox Sports. It's a big part of what we do. It's one of our pillar properties. We have the Euros, which do really well. We just recently announced an extension of the Gold Cup. We have the CONCACAF Nations League. So all of these tournaments are really positive, but everything truly at our company involves on the soccer side around the World Cup. And we know there's going to be competition. We beat out ESPN when we surprised a lot of people and got it back in 2015. So I hope selfishly that we keep it. A lot of our contracts and our livelihoods evolve around that. That's the nature of this business. I'm in the final couple of months of my contract, and I hope to stay at Fox Sports for many more years. And we'll hopefully start some of those discussions here pretty soon. And it's been, look, I've been 11 years at this company. John Strong has been here just as long, Alexi Lawless, myself. So it's a big part of what we do, and we love bringing these World Cups. There's nothing bigger and nothing better that I've ever covered in my career. And quite frankly, I hope one day I get to surpass what I just did this last summer, but I don't know if we ever will, quite frankly. So
your genius, your development as a broadcaster is manifested in things like, my contract is due in a couple of months, and John Shrader in his mind is thinking, what is going to happen next? So what is in the wake of this World Cup now? What are you doing? What is next for you?
Well, myself and John, Alexi, we have a couple of games coming up here with UEFA. So we've got, actually, I just got an email about these today confirming them. And look, the reality is it slows down a lot. A lot of our work and a lot of our schedule has evolved around these summer tournaments, because that's a lot of what we do. We do Gold Cups, Copa Americas, World Cups, and Euros, and we are a big event company at Fox Sports. But, at the end of September, it's this new extended merged FIFA window where you're going to have now at the beginning of the season, they merged two of the windows to not have, the quick break in September and then another one later in October. So now it's a double the length, but we have Norway, Denmark, Spain, Croatia, and France, Italy. So 3 pretty awesome games to kick back into and get back to work after what will have been about a month and a half break since the World Cup. But quite frankly, I know we know each other and we've been around each other over the years, but I'm not a guy that does well doing nothing. I have to be doing stuff. And so I love that we get back to work. And I went from, when I started in sports broadcasting and TV, I was traveling every single weekend. It was difficult on the family, quite frankly. And even myself, I only had 1 kid at the time, but I would, let's say, travel on a Friday to whatever city for an MLS team. I would have meetings on a Saturday with John, we'd go to training sessions. We'd meet with the other team at their hotel. So now you're on day 2 of a 3-day event, basically, because the game was on Sunday. We'd call an MLS game on a Sunday. Monday, I would travel to Atlanta to cover the Champions League Tuesday and Wednesday with TNT. And then I would get home late Wednesday, have 1 day home with the family, and then flip around and do that again for MLS. And think about that. I'm doing that over the course of an entire MLS season. I was calling Club World Cup matches in the middle of the night, basically at midnight, 1 a.m. here in LA. And then I would do Europa League. I would do FA Cup. I was doing Premier League at times for Fox Sports. We'd have the Bundesliga where I'd have 3 a.m. call times. So it's pretty easy when my friends look and say, hey, man, you're in the number 1 chair right now as an analyst, and you just got to be on the lead team for a World Cup. And how awesome is that? And I said, well, look, it is amazing. I don't ever take that for granted, and I'm incredibly humbled and honored to have that position. I also know and have seen over the years that a lot of people want that chair, and it's never guaranteed. And maybe I won't be in that position again for the next World Cup, but also a lot of work has gone into that over the years to be in that position. And I think people forget that because it's easy to look at what people are doing in the moment as opposed to what they have done to get to that position. And I've said this to my family at times too, is that I love my job. I feel fortunate that I get to do this for a job, but at the same time, I actually lost my career and my love early. I had to retire at 29 years old. And so I didn't get to finish out my career. I didn't get to go out on my terms the way I wanted to. My career was cut short at the very peak. And so I love what I get to do now, but it's easy to forget about actually what I went through for that 8 to 10 years of a transition of going from a professional athlete to a broadcaster and now being at the top of this profession. But actually I went through a lot of lows and a lot of hard work, a lot of adversity, a lot of setbacks. And I'm fortunate to be in a position I don't think about that anymore because I love to get to do what I get to do now.
So you're forced out of the game as a player at a young age. Most people are at a real young age, like 40 or under, which is a young age, right? But you're forced out of it, and you go into television. Why television? What's the origin story of that?
Television found me, I guess. Interestingly enough, look, if you look back over the course of my career, actually, there was a video that's still online somewhere. It was a Studio 90 video with the World Cup team in South Africa. And they asked somebody to do a tour of our facilities. And I was the first one to say, yeah, I'm in. I grabbed the broomstick as a microphone. I'm walking around. I'm showing people. I'm grabbing Benny Failhaber and these guys, and I'm interviewing them on the fly. And our team surgeon, Bert Mandelbaum, said, I knew in that moment you were going to do TV. I didn't turn down interviews. I was always happy to sit down with broadcasters when they were in the locker room. I was the first one to step up to do an interview. So I think from that aspect, there was always a part of me that was, I don't know, drawn to it, right? I think my personality is a little bit extroverted in that sense. I like the attention. I'm okay to say that. I think as athletes, that's part of it, right? We're part of a show. We like to be on the field, which is a performance, and competing and doing it in front of thousands of people. So then when I tore my ACL, I got a call from Shaw Brown, who was a producer at the time at NBC. And he said, look, I think you'd be really good at this. Are you interested in your downtime? Now, this is your second injury in a row. Would you like to do some TV? And I said, hey, man, I just tore my ACL 30 minutes ago. Can you give me a break? I need a little time to process this. But sure, I'm interested. And then I did a couple of games in the fall. My first ever game behind the mic was with John Strong. Here we are now. That was in 2014. So 12 years later, we're still calling games together, and just called the largest audience broadcast in soccer history in the United States. But yeah, so it just kind of works like that. I did it. I thought, I like this. So I did it again. And then I did it more while I was still rehabbing. I went back to play. I tore my ACL again in my first game with Bolton. So then I said to ESPN, who had called, look, I'm interested in doing a little bit more with you guys. Now I'm missing the World Cup in 2014. So they asked me to cover the World Cup from their studios in Bristol. I flew out there for a month. Then I got seen by them there. I got asked by Fox Sports in 2015. I did the Gold Cup there. Then NBC asked me to do the Olympics in 2016. And it was just kind of this snowball effect of, I always was told, look, do more, say yes to everything, get reps. Your first game is going to be your worst game. And truly it was. I have the clips still. I look back at that and think, oh my gosh, somebody put me on TV.
Who is that guy?
Who is that guy? And still I got more opportunities, and still people saw that there was something there that they could work with. And so that's why I'm actually always, now when I get the call from young broadcasters, a lot of times I get the first call of, hey, I'm interested in doing this. People have told me to call with you. I sit there, I walk through with them what they need to do. I talk about how I prep, how I think about the things that they need to do now that I wish I knew that I didn't know at the beginning. And so that's how I got into TV. And here I am now in a position where, look, you're going to have to pry this microphone from my cold, dead hands one day, because I love this job. I want to expand. I want to do hosting in different sports or on daytime television, the Today Show, things like that. I'm interested in just seeing where this goes. And I think, quite frankly, my profile's probably never been bigger coming off a tournament like it was. And I don't know, do I start my own podcast? Do I lean into the travel show stuff that I've kind of dipped my toes in? And so I'm interested in anything and everything that kind of comes my way now.
Now, are you foreshadowing something here? I want to be the host on the Today Show. You want to share something with us here? That
not the Today Show specifically. I don't know.
The Today Show. Yeah.
I just always been drawn to things like that. Good Morning America, Today Show. I think it's something I would be good at potentially, but a lot of people ask me, like, where do you go from here? I want to continue having soccer and doing soccer as a big part of what I do, but I'd like to test and expand my horizons in different ways. And to do that, you've got to manifest it a little bit, right?
Yes. There's something that I've been thinking about and writing about, and that is sort of the style of broadcasting. And there's a British style of broadcasting. I think there's an American style of broadcasting, and the Latin style, the Spanish language style, got a lot of attention in this World Cup, along with Fox. Very big audiences on Telemundo. Put the two together, and 65 or 6 million people watched the World Cup final. How do you sort of reconcile the styles, if you do? Is there an American style of broadcasting, and how much of it is British, and is there any Latin style in there, do you think?
Yeah, this is a discussion we have a lot at the bar, honestly. And look, I always say that the styles are very different between English language soccer commentary, broadcasting, and Spanish language. And there's a reason for that. The Spanish language fundamentally is just built very differently to the English language. And a lot of the Spanish language, which I've been learning Spanish for the last couple of years, so I'm fluent now. I take classes a couple times a week. I'm interested in at a point being able to live translate Spanish language to English language, doing more Spanish language appearances and moments where I feel more comfortable with that. But if you actually break down a lot of what the Spanish language commentators are saying and why it's very high energy and there's not a lot of pauses and breaks and it sounds very energetic, is because the words where you can roll your R's and roll words into the next word, it make it very continuous. There's a lot of really rapid flow to it. Remate, lo pegó, golazo. Like all of that is very, it's really fun. It's exciting. It's energetic. It's easy to listen to for me when I watch games in Spanish, when I do a lot. But I say to my friends when they say, I love that goal call. It's electric, the extended goal. And I always say, now try and do that in English. If you're calling a goal, it just doesn't sound the same. It doesn't work. It's just our language is not built in a way that works like that. If John was to say, here comes, the ball is whipped in from the right-hand side and it's a header and it's a goal, it just doesn't work. And there's a reason for that. And that's why it's very unique to the Spanish language, and it's awesome and it's fun and it's different. And I think what we do is fun and different and awesome. And honestly, I loved a skit that I think it was Trevor Noah had a couple of years back in 2018. And he described the way that, look, English commentary, now I'm talking very British English, which is, they have a very unique style too. And it's a slower pacing. It's what we would associate stereotypically with the English language in general, in which it can be quite posh and it sounds very proper. And a lot of us grew up listening to that as being the only voice of the sport. But what I love also too with Fox is that we have invested in what has, I would also say, being proud of American voices, and that American voices and American players and American broadcasters now have a history with the game. And I always get a little bit upset when people think that we shouldn't lean into and be proud of what we have from an American cultural standpoint with this game, and have an inferiority or an insecurity about American voices in general, because I think we're never going to grow if you don't invest in and be proud of having American voices be a lead team, which is Fox were the very first on this scale now, on this profile, to do that in that way. I know we've had American leads and Americans have called World Cup finals in the past, in the very early days of ESPN and other broadcasters that had it. But John and I are the first English language duo to do that on American television, to call 3 straight World Cup finals and to call 3 World Cup finals. We're the only English language to do so. And so I feel fortunate to be a beneficiary of that. But also I think that we as Americans have earned that right and that opportunity to be put in the same level and be seen the same way as English language players and English language broadcasters. And yes, our style is different, but that's for a reason. We as Americans are different than the English, and we shouldn't try to sound like the English. We should take the good things from everybody, from Spanish language, English language, and also the Americans. But I love that our style as Americans, I would say, is to be informative, to be energetic, to be excited, to be invested, to be emotional, and to bring all of that through the camera. So a very long answer there, I think. And I know I'm talking long in TV terms, but from a podcasting standpoint, I think it's important to explain the nuances and the differences between all these different styles, because it's very easy to say, well, I like that. These people care more. No, people don't care more. There's different styles and ways to do it. And that's why it's a very subjective business.
Well, I appreciate that. And just as a postscript to that, in the first 15 years of the league, I broadcast the games in San Jose, and I used that Latin style goal call, De Rosario, go! And honestly, I would do it again, though I think it was as unpopular among half the audience as it was popular with half the audience. But I tell young broadcasters to do what you think is best for your style, for your feeling, for what you believe in, and that's what we should be doing. Don't take pieces of what everybody does. Dark and Champion and Fletcher and are outstanding, right? Take pieces of what everybody does, Holden and Strong and Lawless and whatever, and then do you. whatever you are, do you. So
Yeah, and what I would say, John and I, when we think about, look, we have our broadcasting idols and people that we admire, and we talk about different ways we want to be as a partnership. What I would say is, and this is no disrespect to any other soccer commentator out there, when we are thinking about our broadcast, we're thinking about our partnership and our pairing and our cadence and our information, actually not necessarily towards any other soccer broadcasters out there, but more so in the American high-level sports model of the Bucks and Aikmans and the Collinsworth and Taricos, and thinking about ways in which high-level pairings have been in American sports television, not just American soccer television, because we think that sports television in America is of the highest quality in the world, but we're speaking to a very similar audience that the NFL and NBA, MLB, these types of sports fans, and we want to merge the soccer fandom, the soccer audience, with the high-level American sports fan, and kind of combine a broadcast that produces all the best of all of those. And I think that's what we're trying to emulate, as opposed to trying to be like any other soccer pairing out there in the world. And that's what we talk about on a day-to-day basis. And that's what we base ourselves and what we want to be compared to, not anybody else in soccer, quite frankly.
before it gets away from me, I want to ask you quickly about what the Spanish language fluency has done for you professionally.
Yeah, it's been really challenging and important for me. I've always had an affinity for languages. I went to a half French, half English high school, and so I was fluent in French from 16 until my mid-20s, and then I just didn't get to speak it. I don't know why a Scottish kid from Texas decided to take French instead of Spanish. Seems insane to me now in hindsight why I didn't lean into Spanish when I was very early on in my schooling, because Spanish is a language I love and I got to speak so much when I was younger. But now I can speak fluently. It goes a long way. Look, I'm a part owner of Mallorca in Spain, so I wanted to be able to communicate with our technical staff and players and people when I'm over there. I also wanted to be able to understand the cultural differences between the languages in different parts of the world. I wanted to be able to communicate with anyone that speaks Spanish. And it's an important part of what I love, which is to travel. And so I always love when I get to travel to speak the languages that people do and have that respect for their language and their culture and communicate on their level. But I guess in terms of my TV career, I always see that as a positive, to be able to be versatile. I remember there was a moment in the Copa America a couple of years ago where a referee delivered a decision over the open microphone that he had made on VAR, and he did it in Spanish. And I was able to then live translate that in English, what he was saying and what had happened in that moment. So para mí es muy importante para hablar español y también en inglés. Y yo quiero hacer televisión en español y en inglés, a veces en español con un otro canal. Y vamos a ver.
He says it's very important to him to speak Spanish, and it's very important that he can do it on television and that the audience will understand what he says, and he would like to do Spanish television in the future.
Look
Did
at
I
you
get most
flexing
of
your
that?
Spanish too.
Yeah, I got most of that, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, one quick thought here, and I know we've taken probably more time than I advertised here, but what does the relationship, the partnership with John Strong mean to you?
It means everything to me, honestly. John is not just my broadcasting partner. He's one of my best friends. And we got off on an interesting start to our broadcasting duo partnership friendship, in that we sat down for this lunch on the day we were going to call our first game. The first time I met him, and he delivered me this, I don't want to say a riot act, but it was more a, look here, this is our profession. This is our job. This is my livelihood. I hope you treat this opportunity with a seriousness and a respect, in that you enjoy it, you love it, but you respect it, because I don't like when people come into these positions, in your position as an athlete, and just kind of think, whatever, kind of goof off. And then it reflects poorly on us. And I remember thinking after that, man, this guy is So much older than me, and man, he's so serious right now. I don't know if this is going to work. And I came to learn years later that we're only a matter of weeks apart in age. We have become really close friends, and that we share a lot of commonality with our families and the way we are in our partnerships with our wives and our kids, and the love we share for our kids, how involved we are with as dads, our love for soccer, for American soccer, for the absurdities with it, as well as the amazing things about it that we can embrace. We both love to travel. We're both very curious. We like good food. So all of that has evolved over years. And I think, look, it's pretty unique, honestly, that a partnership and a pairing like that are as close as we are, genuinely, and that we text all the time. We talk all the time on the phone, and that we're such close friends, because I know a lot of other partnerships aren't. And to think that we've been doing this for 11 years together, close to 500 games, which is insane, and that we're still evolving as a pair. And I think that's the most important part, is beyond all the stuff off camera, we're both, I like to think, humble and respectful to the positions that we have, and don't ever take that seat for granted, and look each other in the eyes as we're sitting there before the World Cup final thinking, how lucky are we? And getting to do that together as friends, and hopefully we get to do it for many more years. But again, we don't know what the future holds. We'd like to do this together. We both love what we get to do, and we'll see what happens in the next couple of months here.
Well, as you know, in your 11, 12-year television career, an 11-year partnership in television is a long time. So congratulations on that. And for you all, I hope it's much longer. Stu, thanks a million for your time. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed it.
John, thank you so much, man. I appreciate the notes you sent during the tournament, and the kind words after, and all that you do in covering the game and sports media, which my mom laughs when I talk about, television and soccer television, and that I'm a TV guy now. I listen to everything. I was watching MLS all weekend. I think, why didn't they take that cut? Why are they waiting so long to show that replay? Why didn't they say that? Or and that's what I obsess over now, and I love it, and I appreciate people that bring attention to it. So thanks for what you do, man.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate it. I'm celebrating my 50th anniversary of the first check I cashed in the broadcasting business. And I loved every minute of it. And I'm happy you do too. So thanks.
Yeah.
And thanks again to Stu Holden for his time with us. He and John Strong calling all of those World Cup games in 2026. They've got some other work going on now. A little bit of a downtime for them, but who knows what happens in the 2030, 2034 World Cup. Will it be Fox or will it be somebody else? Who knows? Thanks for being here. We appreciate it and hope you can take a minute to like us, subscribe to us, and send us a note and give us some ideas. I'm John Shrader, and this is the Soccer Media Podcast.